All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, whichever place you are now currently. So this is Sajid. I'm working with the Start Fund Bangladesh as the country manager. It's almost 4 years, and it's always a good opportunity to present the Start Fund Bangladesh in assembly. Some of you here, I know that we're in different assemblies, so you are very much welcome. I see one of my favorite persons, Shruti Patel, you are there. And yeah, so please enjoy the presentation. I would be really keen to hear your reflections. So I will be trying to finish it within 15 minutes and then have around 10 plus minutes for discussions. I could be skimming through some of those, but if you have questions, we can have those questions later on. Okay, so the Start Fund Bangladesh, it's a journey towards localization, what we have done during the last 4 years, but it's the final year of the 4-year phase. So
Pakistan, that is purely dealing around risk financing. They have some.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So what is SFB, Start Fund Bangladesh? It was initiated in 2017, £10 million funding support from UK Aid, currently the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. It was initiated by Start Network as a pilot to understand the pros and cons of the nationally managed pool funding mechanisms. Start Fund Bangladesh evolved within the national humanitarian ecosystem during the last 4 years by creating collective ownership of the local national agencies and the management and strategic decisions made by the members at the national level. And in 3 years, we now have around 47 member organizations. 27 of them are local NGOs. So what does we do? We enable rapid emergency response that is contextually adapted to minimize the loss of lives, livelihood, and dignity. So the 3 results that are expected from this mechanism, beside doing emergency response, one is establishing a nationally civil society managed own fund, expanding the number of the local members, and then demonstrate the value and complementing the existing humanitarian preparedness and response so that we can have better collaboration. Sorry. And as you know, that it's very much built on the spirit of the Grand Bargain and the Charter for Change with a strong focus on localization. And the thing is that when we talk about localization, it looks very good in terms of concepts, but in terms of how does it really look in reality, that's something we are trying to explore. The different streams are participation, accountability, capacity, access to direct funding, etc. And we are attempting always to contextualize all these different work streams and create an ownership over the concept of the Grand Bargain through our practical experiences. What is the learning? I mean, in terms of the direct access to humanitarian aid, if we see that before the establishment of the Start Fund Bangladesh, it was around 93.4% going to the NGOs directly. And if we see now, it's around 73.6% going to local national organizations directly. So there is a big shift in terms of local organizations' direct access to humanitarian aid. In terms of the rapidness, before the establishment of SFB, from crisis day to reaching communities would take around 36 to 37 days. And currently it's around 19 days after the inclusion of local and national NGOs, because they are situated close to the community, raising alert earlier and responding earlier because of their existence and presence and close engagement with the community. In terms of the value for money, as we see that after we had the direct access by local and national NGOs, it reduced the transaction layers, the transaction cost. And what we see now that the before it was 22.6%, which now comes down to 14%. In terms of the active participation of members, we also see that there are good representation of national and local NGO beside the international NGO. So from LR to project selection. So it's all, I mean, within 40 to 50%. But I mean, when all these happenings, a big question lies around the quality of response. Yes, we have rapidness, we have participation, we have value for money in terms of, you know, indirect cost recovery. But does that mean that we have the quality? And ensuring local national NGOs access to fund, it does not automatically shift power or encourage participation. That's what we have seen when we talk about quality of the responses. We have seen that with the rapidness, we don't always see quality, or rapidness sometimes is an excuse to kind of bypass quality, and it does not always necessarily encourage quality. Partnership arrangements, the way it is happening, it may slow down the response. It can increase the cost per beneficiary and does not always diversity or kind of add diversity to the responses or lead to innovations. And accountability to affected population is still a gray area, and it is in most cases ornamental. And talking about the accountability to affected population, what are the reflections from the ground? We have seen that it's, everybody said it's everybody's job, everybody has to maintain accountability, but then it means nobody's responsibility. So that's a big area to kind of, you know, to have more improvements. And accountability is more ornamental than instrumental, and in most cases, it end up in the complaint boxes. So what we have done, we did develop a framework for accountability to affected population with one of the network, Nirapod, which is involved in research and capacity enhancement. So the document has 16 practical accountability tools under 4 broad themes: the information, participation, feedback, complaint response mechanism, and learning. And currently in 2020, we are piloting these accountability tools in our responses, and definitely within 1 year, we will be having a review. And so it's a living document. We will be updating the tools. So the experience shows that, I mean, there are differences in theory and practice, and it's a lot to do with power imbalance and power dynamics, and also whether the community, the affected populations, they are holding power, they are holding the service providers accountable, whether the accountability tools are enabling the affected populations, communities to kind of having more influence on the decisions affecting their lives. So we have a kind of, we have a presentation later. It's there in the below, the information is there. Please join there to have a kind of wider understanding on our experiences from the last 6 to 7 months. In terms of the partnership behavior, we always try to understand whether it is responsible, respectful, and empowering. And a gradual shift is happening, though it is very slow. And you know, there are different partnership modalities, and we are trying to kind of ensure that the partnership modalities reinforce quality in response and respond to agencies' behaviors. And it is also kind of, you know, empowering them or making them realize that there is a requirement to change the systems. So what we are trying to do in terms of promoting principles of partnership, in terms of, you know, ensuring that partners are respecting the equity in partnership, for example, while sharing the indirect cost recovery, management cost, support cost. We are trying to influence diversity in partnership. And then there are different partnerships with, for example, International Center for Climate Change and Development for FOREWARN platform, with Sphere community in Bangladesh for peer review. And then we are also having organizational system strengthening initiative. We have a presentation on the partnership in around less than 50 minutes. The info is below. If I give you a kind of COVID context, it was a case for localization, the way the Start from Bangladesh is now working, and in terms of, having that governance and mechanism, having that independence. So we have seen that around 0.55 million GBP we disbursed to 11 local and national NGOs. Because there were restrictions in terms of international NGOs operations in the field. So it gave also good space for us to intervene through the local NGOs. So 100% of the fund going to the local NGOs and working in 22 different districts. And some of the salient features was that we had a COVID-19 strategic approach, which was done by the executive committee with support from the secretariat. The Secretariat also came up with the standard operating procedures to ensure safety of staff, volunteers, and the project participants. And also, because of the kind of funding going directly to local organizations, and because there were, in terms of travel restrictions, but it also gave opportunity to local organizations to have those flexibility for adaptation and contextualization. And we have seen some of the very transformative kind of work that's happening at the community level. So if I give you, for example, the COVID-19 resilient villages in Shatkhira. So there were 1 villages initially, and inspired by the examples, there are now 5 different villages. So more you will hear from one of the sessions on the COVID-19 context from the Start from Bangladesh. In terms of influencing the change in national humanitarian practices, we have seen that in this year, the new cash package for urban disaster that Start from Bangladesh influenced the cash working group to design for fire and earthquake. It's in practice in 2020. The new rapid need assessment tool for urban disasters, we did it with the need assessment working group. And then it's also practiced at the beginning of 2020. We now have greater national, local NGO coordination during need assessment, during responses with UNRCO, with the clusters. And also we are kind of instilling localization agenda within the humanitarian coordination task team work plan. The mechanism for accountability to affected communities, it's already incorporated as the accountability tool for the national level humanitarian response plan. The Start from Bangladesh is now co-lead of the localization technical working group. And then also, there are currently a very good initiative and interest from the government on forecast-based early actions. So Start from Bangladesh with the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and the forecast-based early action working group, we were successfully advocated with the government, and there is now a forecast-based financing task force in the standing order on disaster in the SOD 2019 for Bangladesh. We did the midterm evaluation that ended at the beginning of this year, and some of the areas for improvement that identified from the midterm evaluation was the membership engagement. We have seen that there is a gradual disengagement of NGOs, and that's also a kind of perception as well. As we see that alerts are becoming more localized and with smaller size of the envelope. The Secretariat's engagement, members feel that it needs to go beyond alert cycle management. And also there is a feeling that members could be more engaged and they have more ownership over the communication and advocacy at the national level. In terms of innovation, we need to gather more evidence on crisis response and affected population during every alert cycle, and also need to understand how we use those evidence to drive innovative changes, and also the behavior and the overall system. We need to bring diversity in partnership in order to drive innovation. We need to incentivize innovation, especially when the 45-day response have little space for innovation. There are issues around accountability and participation, and everybody feels that there should be evaluation of the existing accountability tools through comprehensive impact evaluation. Communication and advocacy, as I said earlier, more membership engagement in required. But beside, we need more organized approach towards documenting and showcasing the good practice and evidence. And that might influence the humanitarian aid architecture. And finally, the fundraising and sustainability. So how to raise fund nationally and more to explore around private sector and explore revenues like microfinance, zakat, etc. So what's new in our new business case? As you know, the Start Fund Bangladesh is coming to an end in November 2019. We now have a cost extension proposal on the table for FCDO to consider. If that happens, we have an extension till March 2021, which means that we need a new business case for more post March 2021. So the case now we are preparing, it's in the drafting stage, it's for next 5 years. So just showing here what would be the kind of new things in our upcoming business case. So we will be diversifying the membership base. Now it's only NGO, INGO who are not truly representing the full percentage of the civil society actors. So there will be private sector, academia, media to increase the diversity of the membership base, but also it would be helping in our advocacy and fundraising initiative. We will be aligning the fund's governance in Bangladesh more with the hub structure. Innovations around early actions, disaster risk financing. That's the kind of area we will be putting extra emphasis in the new phase. So adding innovation window as part of the fund. In the 45-day response fund, there will be a small window of innovation, for example, 5 to 10% of the fund, where members will be engaging more with the community and coming up with innovative ideas, and also kind of separating a percentage of the whole funding amount for innovations. We will be definitely encouraging partnership diversity and also promoting respectful partnership behavior. A lot of emphasis will be on strengthening organizational systems and readinesses to mobilize resources. We have already kind of piloted a co-creation of an organizational system strengthening plan. We will be expanding it and to other members. We will be reinforcing accountability to affected population more from the experiences of 2020. We will be reviewing our accountability tools on an annual basis based on the experiences. And definitely we will be investing more in terms of human resources and other things. Nowadays, currently, most of the organizations, they take it as part of their M&D exercise, but it is something different, and that extra differences will be added through investments and capacity enhancements. We will have increased participation of women as staff and volunteers in the Start Funded Response. And a lot of things are added to it in terms of empowerment, in terms of community participation, in terms of women's participation in the whole response mechanism. It is a big challenge. We will be doing it. We will be introducing analytical platforms like pre-crisis data repository to better understand the anticipated impacts, crisis needs, and the response gaps. And what our members think of us, we recently had a perception survey. If you see 2.4% in terms of learning with and between members and partners, that's really an area where we are kind of looking very seriously now in terms of how to engage, how to have better engagement between the secretariat and members, and also between the members. The other thing around the enhanced coordination between members and partners. Also, we are focusing on the partnerships and agreements and the kind of, as I said, promoting those respectful behaviors, which would be looking into enhanced coordination among members. So this is all for me now, for now, and I would be really asking for more questions in terms of clarity. So Danny, if you are going to facilitate that in terms of who is in the chat box, if anyone typing or if someone raising hands. Over.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one we've got is Start Fund is able to access international funding. When you raise fund nationally from the private sector, do you compete with local organizations who also work in this environment who are not members of Start Network? Bit of a long one.
Oh, okay. I mean, when we say Start Network members, so there are also differences in the membership status. I would be definitely asking and always asking the Start Network to have a look into it. So when we say Start Network members, it's only the INGOs, but when we say Start Fund Bangladesh members, it includes the Bangladeshi local and national NGO. So just to start with that. So if we are raising private sector funding, definitely that fund goes into the mother funding account. So the hosting organizations, they will be hosting the fund, and definitely we will be orchestrating that kind of mechanism where the private funding can also be accessed by other member organizations working in Bangladesh. Yes. Any other hands? Sorry, I don't know why, I don't see the chat box in here.
That's okay, don't worry. We had another one from Ashraful a bit earlier on saying, what happened to 2017, 2019 in reaching community?
What do you mean? Sorry, I mean, what do you mean by reaching communities, 2017, 2019? Yes, we reached communities, but we reached communities through INGOs, and so there were different transactions. So in some cases, we found that there are even 3 to 4 different transaction layers. And what was happening due to that? So it was increasing the transaction cost. It was increasing the time to reach to communities. And then also there were issues around effective participation of the local organizations in decision making. So yes, we were reaching communities, but in terms of quality, in terms of the kind of value additions, I think there were gaps. And the localization, definitely in terms of having more local organizations into the decision making, into the direct funding access, those quality in terms of reaching communities are definitely enhancing. If I'm not sure, Ashraf, whether I answered, it was the expected answer from your side.
Great. We've had a question from Joanne O'Neill who said, could you share any more information about increasing participation of women?
Okay, so if I give you one example, for example, when even we say, because currently most of the funding is going as cash, so it's a kind of multi-purpose cash transfer. And why we are saying that we are providing cash, so that community can decide, or the households can decide by themselves which one they will procure and for what purpose. But then we see that in terms of participation, maybe again, it's the head of the families, it's male or female, maybe they are kind of making the decision. For example, we are not sure how much of the adolescents are kind of participating in those decision making. So decisions, though we are providing cash with a very good intention that the families will be using it according to their purpose, but in terms of how they are participating in decision making, that's a gray area. So we need more participation of women, but at the same time, we need nudging from our side to ensure that women are more participating in decision making, in the accountability mechanisms. And we have seen from our experiences that even I have seen that some of the organizations, even local organizations, when they are responding at the local level, we've seen that around 90 to 100% staffs, all are male staff. There is no female staff, or maybe one female staff out of 6 or 7 total staff. And even among the volunteers, we have seen that maybe there are 20% volunteers who are female and most of them are male. So what is in fact happening that we do not have those quality interactions among the participants and the staff volunteers. So which is why there is a big requirement in terms of women's participation as staff volunteers, but also that will encourage women's participation from the affected communities.
And we've got Duke with a hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Thank you, everybody. I'm Duke from Jagunari. Jagunari is a local organization, and we are the proud member of the Star Network Bangladesh. So I would like to ask question to Sajid Bhai that, do we have any plan to replicate this start fund model to the other INGOs? Because you know that experience in Bangladesh, the start fund is a funding mechanism very fast, and it goes to directly to the local organization. But in terms of practicing the other INGOs, they are not providing the fund very fast as faster like start fund. So do you have any mechanism to advocacy with the INGOs to replicate the start fund model? So this is the one question, and another question is that, so do you have any idea, start fund have any mechanism to linkage with the local NGOs to the international donors? Because you know that we are the local organization and we do not have access to the international donors to raising fund or communicating with them. So do you have any strategy to linkage between local organization to international donors? Thank you.
Okay, so the two big questions. One is in terms of whether the INGOs can take this start funding mechanism. Definitely, we are creating evidence. There are systems in place. The protocols is very much established. There are very clear idea around the protocol. So any of the INGOs, so it's very much their kind of, higher decisions, higher authorities decisions. But if you see, I mean, there are even the INGO contingency fund, which is already there, I think, which is faster than the start fund mechanism even. The INGO contingency fund, some of the INGOs, they have 20,000 GBP, some have 50,000, 100,000 GBP. I've seen that in Save the Children also, they have contingency fund, which they immediately, disperse it to their local community if there is a disaster. The amount of the funding, in terms of the amount, maybe it's lesser than the start fund, but in terms of the rapidness, some of the INGOs have that contingency fund, which can be easily dispersed, and we have seen examples of those from SAVE, from ActionAid. There are organizations who does that now on a regular basis. In terms of the kind of, the creating that direct linkages between the local organizations and the donors, yes, definitely, that's very much on our plan. As you know, that it's Start Fund Bangladesh Committee, out of the 13-member executive committee, we have 7 reps from the local national NGOs and 6 from the INGOs. So in terms of the executive committee meeting with the donors and donor platforms, definitely those will be coming in our next phase more visibly, and definitely that will be creating more scope in terms of local NGOs having more direct interactions with the international donors. Yeah, definitely that's something in our considerations. And also, there are recognitions already that what the local organizations are doing in terms of promoting part of the localization agenda in terms of rapidness, in terms of the value for money. So that's very much kind of considered as a success. And I'm sure that the donors will also have that interest to work with the local organizations directly in near future. Thanks.
Great. So we've had a few more questions and I've made a note of them, and I will pass them on to Sajid and the team, because obviously we are sort of over time with the session now. So send all your last questions in and I'll make sure they are shared. There's also a link in the chat so you can head back to the main page and have a look at some of the other sessions we have today.
Okay. So thank you very much for being patient, listening to the presentations. As I say, there are some other presentations related to participation, accountability, COVID-19 examples, and partnership, please be there in those sessions, and we will have more detailed discussion there. So thank you again. Wish you all the best, and please wish all the good luck for Start Fund Bangladesh. Have a nice assembly. Bye-bye.